Hello, welcome to our regular Ubuntu community team Q&A. This week you've got myself, Alan Pope, and Michael Hall. Hello, Mike. How are you doing?
Hello, I'm good.
Good. So in this transatlantic community Q&A, we ask members of the community to join in and contribute their questions, which we will attempt to answer. You can do that. The easiest way to do that is to go to the website, ubuntuonair.com. And you'll find the video at the top and the chat at the bottom. And in the little chat, you can type in your questions. If you have an IRC client, you can also connect to the IRC channel, which is on the Freenode network, and it's #ubuntu-on-air. And you'll be in the same place, and people chat away in there and give us your questions. Make sure you prefix your question with the word question in uppercase. It's a convention that means that we can see the questions because they highlight in our channel here, which is quite useful in amongst all the other chatter that goes on. Before we start, we've got a couple of things to mention. Do you want to kick off with UbuCon?
Sure. You guys can start asking questions while we go over these updates, and then we'll come back through them one at a time. So UbuCon is coming up. It's a big UbuCon over in Europe. It is in Essen, Germany, but it is a across Europe UbuCon instead of just a country-specific one like they've done in the past. So we're really excited about this newer, bigger, better UbuCon in Europe. I'm going. Alan's going. Jane Silber, the CEO of Canonical, is going to be there giving a keynote. And we've got people flying in from all over the world giving a whole bunch of really great presentations. The link to that is on ubucon.org. I've just pasted that into the IRC channel for you. There you can see the list of speakers, the schedule, information about how to travel to get there, what airports are nearby, what trains will get you to the actual venue itself, that kind of thing. So that's going to be November, pull up the actual dates. So that's going to be November 18th, 19th, and 20th. The evening of the 18th, which is a Friday, there's going to be a social gathering for everybody to get together, chat, get to know each other, have some drinks, have some fun. And then the actual conference event starts on Saturday the 19th. So if you can come to that, you can come see us all in Essen, Germany, and have a good time there. And right before UbuCon, in fact, that very week before UbuCon, we are having our next Ubuntu Online Summit. Alan, do you want to tell everyone a little bit about that?
Yes, the Online Summit is a virtual event where we all get together and schedule a bunch of sessions to discuss across a range of topics. There are a number of tracks that we run at each UOS. This time we've pared things down a little bit. And the tracks are Cloud, Community, Convergence, and Core. And there's an overflow room as well. We couldn't think of a word beginning with C that meant overflow. So we couldn't have Cloud, Community, Convergence, Core, and something else beginning with C. Use your imagination. And the idea is that this is a user-driven event, so you can create sessions about anything that you want to discuss that fits into those categories, and if it doesn't fit into those categories, then you can use the overflow room. And if you've ever attended a UOS in the past, you'll know we have 1 hour slots or shorter if it's more appropriate, and these can be workshops, discussions, show and tell, anything really where you want to get a bunch of people together to discuss something related to Ubuntu. Could be desktop, server, could be Snappy related, could be flavor related, something to do with one of the many Ubuntu flavors, or just whatever comes to mind. If you've got a topic you want to discuss, something community related maybe, then you can create a session. The website to go to with all the information, which is a bit sparse at the moment, so the calendar's nice and free for you to create your sessions. The website is summit.ubuntu.com, and there's a section for the upcoming summit. It's called 1611 because it's November 2016.
And in addition to just requesting your own sessions, if you know somebody who could give a good session, please do encourage them to add that to the list of proposed sessions. We're also always on the lookout for track leads. Track leads just help us with scheduling. They help the presenters get set up and run the session itself. Sometimes they'll field questions for them or just set up the on-air hangout. So that's something that you can do even if you don't have a presentation you want to talk, but you want to help us with the Ubuntu Online Summit. Come volunteer to be a track lead and help us with the organization and actual logistics of running the event.
One other thing I wanted to mention is if you are on the Snapcraft mailing list, you'll have seen a mail from Daniel Holbach announcing something that he and Didier Roche have been working on recently, and that's something called Snapcraft Code Labs. And it's a set of tutorials to get people up to speed on how to create their own snaps, to how to package your application or somebody else's application up as a snap. And there's a little bit of information on the Snapcraft mailing list. And there's also a snap in the store which contains the code labs. So if you're running Ubuntu 16.04 or one of the other supported releases or other supported distros, you can snap install code labs and you'll get running on your local machine a set of tutorials that you can access in a browser. You just point at localhost. I think the port is 8123. And there's a set of tutorials. They're varying length, varying difficulty levels, from like the super easy 20-minute tutorial of how to get started in creating your first snap, and then it gets a little bit more complex as you go on. There's only a few code labs in there at the moment, but they're all open source, so people can contribute code labs if they want to. And in Daniel's email on the Snapcraft mailing list, there's details on how you can do that. But yeah, just install code labs and point your browser at localhost 8123 and you can go through the tutorials yourself. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, you can use this to learn about snaps, and you could also use this to teach other people how to create snap packages. So if you're in a local team and you want to host an event where you go through this code lab presentation, you can do that. If you were at KDE Academy last month or earlier this month, I don't remember which, this is what Daniel used to give his Snappy workshop there. So it's been tried, it's been tested. We're looking for more people to start using it.
Cool. I think that's all of our announcements, is it?
I believe so. I don't have any other announcements anyway.
Okay. Should we crack on with the questions? As we said, ask your questions in Ubuntu On Air on IRC, or if you just go to ubuntuonair.com, ask your questions there, prefix them with the word question. Don't leave it till the last minute, because often we're a couple of minutes behind you, and so, or you're a couple of minutes behind us. I can't figure that out. Time is tricky. Yeah, let's go shopping.
It's all wibbly wobbly.
So get your questions in, and we'll answer them if we can in the time given. So should we dive into this first one?
Yep, from Coder Europe. He's asking, last week you proposed that I change the battery on my Ubuntu Touch Nexus 4. How exactly do I do that if the battery is not detachable?
So it is replaceable. It's not one of these ones where there's a plastic cover and you just pull it off with your fingernail and pull the battery out like, some phones. But the Nexus 4 is actually not too tricky to replace. There's two screws in the bottom of the phone, and you take those two screws out. Then you take the back cover off. Once you've taken the back cover off, there's some glue holding the battery in, and there's two more screws holding the connector onto the board. But it's not too tricky. The most tricky thing is actually getting the back of the phone off without smashing it, because the back of the phone is glass, and if you put too much pressure prizing the back of the phone off, you can stress the back of the phone and just shatter it, which is exactly what I did on my phone.
So I had to go through this step not to replace the battery, but to replace a broken back, so I didn't have to worry about it quite as much. I ordered a new back off of, I think it was like repairsuniverse.com or something like that, and they sent me this handy little plastic tool that, I'm not sure if you can see it, but it's kind of got a little angled piece at the end, and you wedge that in between the front screen and the back case and just very carefully work it around the phone until the back pops off.
Yeah.
It's
Once
a
you've
bit
done it a
hard.
couple of times, it's okay.
Yeah.
But the first time, you're like worried you're going to break it.
Yeah, if you've got a steady hand and a little screwdriver, that would work probably better than this actually, because the plasticky bit on this was a little bit weak for prying it off, and it was bending and distorting and all. So if you feel confident with a screwdriver taking off a glass case, you can do that. It wasn't terribly hard. Putting it back on is a lot easier.
There's if you go on eBay and look for Nexus 4 battery, they generally come in a kit. So there's the battery and the screwdriver you often get 2 screwdrivers. I think the screws that go in the bottom of the phone are different from the screws that hold the connector on the inside of the phone. So you get those in the set, and you get one of those blue spudgers as well to open the phone.
Right, and it's a weird kind of screw too. I had to special order a tip to my screwdriver to get into that. It's this tiny little star-shaped screw head.
They don't want you inside that phone, Mike.
They don't. No. Well, if they didn't want me inside the phone, they shouldn't have put glass on the back of it.
Cool. Right. Next question is from Hot Potato, I think, which is, any news on new Ubuntu phones? No, and actually,
we should just make this part of our weekly update. The fact that we don't make new hardware announcements on this show, because we do get this question every week, don't we?
Yeah, we do. And I think, optimistically, people might think that we're just gonna, pull a phone up and start waving it around and go, look, there's one there.
One of these times we'll let it slip.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, if you ask us enough, maybe we'll have an accident and
yeah.
say,
What you don't know is, on tables behind both of us, just out of camera shot, there's a whole slew of super secret devices you can't see.
I wish. Yeah. So no, unfortunately not. Sorry about
that. We actually missed one from RIP Harambe 2016.
Sorry.
The question is, where is Ubuntu 16.10 Beta 2?
This question was asked on Google Plus over the weekend, and I had a look, and there was a discussion on the Ubuntu release mailing list, and it seems it was delayed. It was supposed to be last Thursday, and it was delayed because there was a show-stopping kernel bug in 16.10. So while they're working on fixing that, they decided not to spin the beta images, and they postponed it until this week. I don't know what the status is right now. There's not been an update to the mailing list since a little while ago. So I would imagine soon, once that bug is fixed.
Follow the mailing list or join #Ubuntu -desktop, and you can probably ask
Ubuntu,
some people in there.
Ubuntu release is probably, and don't bug everyone because they're probably busy doing it, but you could probably infer from whatever conversations are happening in that channel as to what's going on. Hot Potato asks, do you know any German words? I didn't do German at school, and the only German I know is from playing computer games, Second World War era computer games. So they're not really super useful words that I would use these days in modern day Europe. So,
right.
No.
Now, since both of us are English speakers, regardless of your thoughts on American English, so we do have some kind of German words that we use all the time, just by nature of that.
Okay.
I look forward to picking up some German words, though, while we're in Essen.
Absolutely.
But mostly food and beer names, I would imagine.
So next question is from Seb, who asks me if I've got a Tizen phone, and what do I think of Tizen. He has a Tizen Z1 recently, and also ask you, Mike, if you have a Tizen phone.
I do not have a Tizen phone. I know there's a couple of them out there, and I looked at the Tizen SDK years back, but I haven't really done much with it other than just try and keep a general level knowledge of where it's at.
Yeah.
So, Alan, do you have one?
No, I don't. I don't. The only time I've seen one in the flesh, as it were, is I was sharing a car journey with Martin Wimpress from the Ubuntu Mate project, and he had one. I think he had it on loan. It might have been his own. I don't know, but he handed it to me. I had to play with it. Yeah. It was a phone, like many others. There wasn't anything particularly distinctive about it. It was, a rectangular slab of a phone with some software on it. I'm subscribed to a couple of the Tizen developer mailing lists, so I like to keep an eye on things like that. And I also signed up to the Samsung Tizen store. I think they call it the seller store or something like that. So I get like emails every so often with announcements about where Tizen is going live next, and what apps are popular in the store, and it's quite interesting reading and comparing that to our platform and other platforms.
Yeah,
but,
I mean, I think unsurprisingly, it looks quite a bit like Samsung's version of Android.
Right.
The styling and all is the same. It looks like the general functionality and user workflow is going to be the same.
Yeah, I've long maintained that Samsung's ultimate goal is to replace Android with Tizen and keep their S apps on top of Tizen instead of having it on top of Android. But whether they'll actually do that, I don't know.
Yeah, if anybody can, it would be Samsung. They've got enough user share in the phone market to do that.
We've got another question. This one's from Seferi, I think, who asks, the Nextcloud box seemed very consumer ready, so I jumped on it, but I had problems adding the hard drive because of permission problems. Will there be a noob manual for the Nextcloud box? Interesting. It's interesting that yours has arrived, because I've also ordered one the day they were announced, and I don't know if it's on its way to me or stuck in shipping somewhere. I don't know. I have used Nextcloud on a machine, but it was on a machine that only had one drive. And so I didn't have this issue of adding the second drive, because the Nextcloud box has a Raspberry Pi that has its internal storage on an SD card, and then the mass storage device, the large terabyte hard drive, is a separate drive. And I don't know how those two things integrate together. But there is quite a busy Nextcloud IRC channel on Freenode. So I would suggest probably the best place to go is to jump on there and ask your question in there, because I'm interested to know the answer, and I'm lurking in that channel, so I'll keep an eye out and look for what the answer is, because I want to know as well. But yeah, it's an interesting device.
Yeah. I've got a Raspberry Pi and 1 terabyte external hard drive, so I've been looking for a free weekend where I can try and make my own Nextcloud box, as it were, even if it's just sitting in a shoebox. But
dude, it doesn't take a weekend. It takes minutes. It's like I dug out a Raspberry Pi, and it had an SD card in it. I think it had Raspbian on it, but it wasn't something I really needed. So I just took the SD card out, put it in my laptop, downloaded the image, and plopped it onto the drive, put the drive in my Pi, connected it to a TV and a keyboard, went through the first setup wizard, and then snap install Nextcloud. Done.
Oh, you have to connect it to a screen? I thought you could do it all headless.
You could do it over a serial cable.
Okay.
Or you can do it over a keyboard and VGA screen.
Okay.
The first initial setup, but once you've done that, it takes like a minute or two to do that. Once you've done that, you can then unplug the VGA, unplug the keyboard, and you don't need that anymore, because it part of the install of Snappy on the Raspberry Pi will put your SSH key on there for you. It goes and figures out your SSH key from Launchpad and puts it on the Pi. So from that point onwards, you don't need a serial console or a VGA or HDMI or whatever.
Okay. All right, well then I'll spend 10 minutes getting that set up and the rest of the weekend making a fancy cardboard box to house it all.
The thing that took more time for me was DDing the image onto an SD card. That took way longer than anything else. But once you've done that, it's pretty cool.
Knowing me, I'm probably gonna grab a copy of the Nextcloud source code and poke around at that for a while and see what I can break.
Good idea. It's PHP. I'm sure you'll love it.
Oh yeah. All right, we should move on from Hot Potato. What Ubuntu devices do you use, and what are the most interesting?
So Pro 5 is the main one I use, but I also like using the BQ devices, the older BQ devices, just because I like proving that stuff still works on those, even though they're, relatively old, but everything still works, just perfectly on them.
You call those relatively old, and I've still just got the Nexus 4. So sorry. Yeah, that's all I really have. I've got the Nexus 4 and I've got my laptop. Those are my only Ubuntu devices that are mine anyway. I mean, my kids have an Ubuntu computer. So yeah, old devices.
Okay, what's next?
From Master Noob, asking, what are the Ubuntu Touch core? Why are the Ubuntu Touch core apps so scare quotes abandoned?
It's a good question. Lack of developers is the simple, straight answer. We've had some developers who've gone off to get married and get a job in a different city. We've had others who've changed country. We've had others who've just moved on to other projects or just decided they didn't want to work on core apps anymore. And it's been difficult finding more people to work on them. And as I say, pretty much every time I'm on here, if you want to work on them, then let me know and I'll point you in the right direction. But it's really just a lack of developers.
So if you aren't aware, the core apps were not paid developers. These were people in the community who wanted to make some great apps. We worked with them to help them get started. We got them in touch with the design team to get some design work done. We did testing and added them to our CI infrastructure and all, but it was all done by community developers. And most of these core apps never had more than 1 or 2 developers at a time. So there was a lot of work done by a very small number of people. And like Alan said, when somebody leaves to go get married, that's the whole development team gone. So yeah, if you want to see them pick up development pace a little bit, get involved. Either get involved developing yourself or help us find some developers on them. I know some of them are still being actively worked on. Deco is still being worked on by Dan Chapman. I saw that the Shorts app is getting a new look and feel to it. I've seen some posts on that on Google+.
Yeah, the ones that have developers are actively maintained.
Yeah, so find us more developers and they won't be abandoned anymore.
Right, what's next? Convergence Europe _ asks, has or do you know of anyone who has tried getting an Android Meizu and flashing Ubuntu Touch on it? Yes, my friend Martin Wimpress, he bought a Meizu Pro 5, which had Flyme OS on it, I believe, which is what it ships with. And he followed some guides online in order to do whatever monkeying around you have to do in order to get it Ubuntu installed on it.
Right. I have heard about somebody doing that with one of the BQ devices also. I know the first BQ device, that was how we got started bringing it up. But those had the Android soft key buttons printed on the screen. So those obviously aren't used in Ubuntu, but they don't go away either, and it looked kind of funny.
Yeah. So that's one of the original Android ones. So you can see it still has the Android buttons on it, and then that's an Ubuntu one which doesn't have the buttons. They're There's basically glass over the top of them, which obscures them. They are still there, but they're hidden.
All right. The next one is from Jarlith. He's asking if you were... Oh, geez, a tree. Oh, no, he's kidding. Okay. Thought this was another tree question. Let's see. The amount of raw light coming from the phone screen is hard on the eyes at night. Is that something the team are aware of? So I always just set mine to adjust the screen brightness based on ambient light, and that's always worked pretty well. Sometimes if it's like late at night and the room's dark, I'll just turn it all the way down manually. But for the most part, ambient light detection has worked for me. Again, on a Nexus 4, so maybe other phones are brighter.
The thing that's is an interesting choice that BQ made is on all of the devices when you turn them on. So this is off, and when you turn them on, the first thing that happens is you get smacked in the face with a very, very bright white screen. And obviously, if your phone was off and you're laying in bed and you turn it on, yeah, that's going to poke your eyes out a little bit, and it stays there for a little while. So yeah, I usually turn the phone on with it turned away from me, and then
But that's just boot, right? That's not if you just turn the screen off and on, you don't get hit with that.
No, of course. But that's one of the experiences you can have with an Ubuntu phone.
Yeah. The number of times I turn mine off for anything other than an update or a reboot has been relatively small. All right, Hot Potato is asking how many apps are available on Ubuntu phone and why there are no more apps. So I haven't actually looked at the number of apps in a while, but last time I looked, it was a few thousand.
Yeah, I'll open the page. It takes a while to render the stats page, but I'll open it while you read the next question.
All right. Yeah, so I didn't use that many apps, although I had more apps installed on my Ubuntu phone than I have on Android devices. But never more than like 100. So thousands of apps in the store covers all my bases pretty well. As for why there are not more apps, it's because we don't have more developers.
Because you haven't written them. That's why. We don't have them because you haven't written them. That's why.
There you go. All right. Still waiting for the page?
Yeah.
All right. Moving on then. Coder Europe is asking, Twitter is being sold to Disney. That's news to me. Is Canonical being sold to the Bingites? The perpetual rumor that Microsoft's going to buy us. Not this week. Nope. Ask us again next week.
Is that going to be on you if you were a tree? Question is going to be, are you being bought by Microsoft?
That's our old are you a tree question.
Yes.
If Canonical was going to be bought by a tree, what kind of tree would buy it? Is Twitter actually being sold to Disney? I haven't heard of this.
I have no idea. All
right.
Next question from Hot Potato. How hard is it to snap core apps? Not actually that hard because, it depends. For the QML ones, not actually that hard, and we've already snapped a few of them. So calculator and clock have already been, snaps have been made of those. So all of the others should be relatively straightforward for the pure QML ones. Some of the others are a little bit more tricky. I know Dan has successfully created a snap of Deco, the email client, and that's in the Snap store. Ones that are a bit more tricky are things like the music app, which depends on other things like Media Scanner and requires additional permissions that some of the other kind of standalone apps don't. Calendar is another one that's a bit tricky because it requires the syncing service and so on. So we're working on them. It depends is the short answer. Yeah. Some of them are easy, some of them are hard. It depends on what other things they need.
So I actually have kind of some related news to that I think is pretty nice. So one thing that we have struggled with snapping the core apps is that they had to include all of the Ubuntu SDK runtime in the app themselves, and so that made them quite a bit bigger than Click packages were. So the Snap developers have introduced a new interface called Content, which lets you share files, including runtime files, between snaps. And Harold Sitter, who works on KDE Neon, has been playing with this new interface for KDE. And he actually showed me today a couple of snaps, one that's the KDE framework snap, which is about 130 megs, and then also a KCalc snap, which is only just a little over 300 kilobytes in size.
Wow.
Yeah.
It was
and
like
it works
70
and
meg or something, wasn't it?
Yeah. So this new interface is really going to open up a lot of opportunity for making snaps that all depend on the same kind of underlying platform, like the Ubuntu SDK or KDE frameworks. That'll make it easier to snap them and also make them much smaller as well. So
Cool.
I'm going to write up a little bit more about that later today. But that's a pretty cool new development.
Excellent. Next question, Dragos asks, is Ubuntu for Android still available? And if yes, where can I find it? Well, technically it never was available. It was only ever an internal build that was shown around a number of phone manufacturers and carriers and shown demos at trade shows. We never made Ubuntu for Android publicly available. So unfortunately there isn't any public image of it. And
right. It wouldn't really be useful anyway, because it was really just, like a hacked version of the Android image for that device to get it to export this Ubuntu desktop. So we couldn't just release this one image that everybody could use on their Android phones. It was not that generic.
And the version of Ubuntu that it brought up was 12.04 with Unity 2D, which long since deprecated and no longer maintained. So unfortunately not. And there's a follow-up question that's also from Dragos that says, is it possible to port Ubuntu desktop to an Android phone? I have seen there's a project called Maru, which allows you to run a Debian desktop on an Android device. I think it's limited to one specific device at the moment. I think it only works on the Nexus 5. But yeah, I think you can run various desktops. And I think some of them use either a shared kernel or they use a cheroot and have the desktop running inside a cheroot or something. So there's a few people who've tried this and got it working. But I don't think there's like a general purpose installer that works on every phone.
No, I've seen it years ago. Somebody did it in a cheroot and then had like an Android VNC client that would connect to it.
Right.
It was pretty hacky to get going, and if you're looking at it on a small screen, it's not going to be very nice.
Right. Dragonbite asks, what's the state of Ubuntu phone for devices other than BQ and Meizu or of tablets? This is a thinly veiled way of asking us the same question that was asked earlier, which is, are there any news about any upcoming devices? And the answer is we don't have any news in that regard.
If you want to know the current status of things, join the Ubuntu phone mailing list. There you'll find all the latest updates as they're landing in trunk or the CI train or whatever. All right, Jarlith asks, a tremendous amount of work is done between OTAs. That is obvious to the technical user, but less so to the casual user. Do you think the OTAs are likely to have more directly user-facing changes in the future?
It's funny because
I would say that they're already pretty user-facing changes.
Yeah, I mean, the system settings changed a fair bit between OTA 12 and OTA 13, and there are things coming in Unity 8 which are changing, which might come in a later build. I don't know. So I think there is some stuff. I mean, there's a load of fundamental bits and pieces under the hood that need fixing. And I mean, if you look at any of the bug lists for the milestones, for the OTA milestones, you'll see there's a chunk of really gnarly under the hood things, like the fact that the phone doesn't switch between wireless and 3G properly sometimes, or the GPS fails sometimes, and these are things that we really need to get fixed, and it's difficult to try and land. You always get some people who say, well, you should be fixing all those underlying things because without the GPS and the Wi-Fi, the phone's pretty much useless. And then you get people saying, well, I want to see nice, interesting, shiny, user-facing stuff. And we have to figure out where to allocate the resources because the team working on this isn't a huge team. So yeah, it's a difficult balance between new shiny and fixing underlying infrastructure stuff that everyone benefits from.
Yeah, things have also settled down quite a bit in terms of design. We went through several different designs for the UI toolkit, themes, colors, all that kind of stuff until we've settled on something that works well and looks nice. And I think once we get to that point, it's natural that there will be less visual change after that. That it'll be subtle tweaks here and there, and more work on making everything work properly.
Hot Potato asks, "What's the state of Xenial on phones and tablets?" So I don't follow that piece of work. I kind of have half an eye on that, and I understand we have an image that boots, and a 64-bit image that boots on the BQ tablets. But I know there's an awful lot of change between the images that are on these BQ devices, which is based on 1504, plus a whole load of updates in a PPA. There's a lot of delta between that and what's in 64-bit with a new version of Qt and a whole load of other base libraries and the build tool chain and all of that kind of stuff is all changed. So they're incrementally fixing all the things that broke when they went from 1504 to 1604. I don't know the current state of that, but it's something that's still being worked on.
Again, if you're interested, join the mailing list, join the IRC channel, and you can follow along with all the daily chatter that happens around these things. And
if the Ubuntu phone mailing list is too chatty for you, and it can be a bit busy at times, there's actually a Ubuntu phone announce list on Launchpad as well, where Lucas posts updates each day, usually very, very tail end of the European working day, with an update of what's been going on and a link to like significant bugs that have been fixed or milestones which have lists of bugs and so on. So that's worth reading. If you don't want the full mailing list, the fire hose of Ubuntu phone mailing list, just grab the Ubuntu phone announce, or just look at the archives and browse through those and you can see what's going on.
All right. Dragos is asking, is Wine available for snaps? I don't know if we have any examples that use Wine, do we?
So I built a snap in which it has Wine. It's actually a question that comes up a few times. One of the problems is due to some thing I don't fully understand to do with the security policy in the kernel, we can't run 32-bit binaries inside a 64-bit snap on a 64-bit host. So I can't run a 32-bit version of Wine on a 64-bit host in a snap. So I compiled the 64-bit version of Wine, and it runs, but there are some security things that I need to work out in order to get it to work fully. It's almost there. But once that works, I would probably publish that as a part so that other people could take their app or their game, their Windows app or their Windows game, and then just pull in the Wine 64 part and then use that inside their snap, and it would just bundle the two together as one. But it's not quite there. If someone wants to work on that, I'll share what I've done so far, and you can take a look and work on that.
So it's possible. Just gotta polish the rough edges now. All right. Chloe Wolfie Girl is asking 2 weeks too late about the HUD, the new scopes, and the messaging frameworks. So, Chloe, we had Thomas Voss on just for you and your questions a couple of weeks ago, where we did talk about all of these different topics. So go back to youtube.com/Ubuntu On Air, find that episode and rewatch that. And he did his best to give as much information on the status of those as possible.
What's next? Dragonbite asks, dumb question probably. Nope, there are no dumb questions here. What does OTA stand for? It stands for over the air. So there's two ways you can flash an Ubuntu phone. You can either do it from a PC and squirt the bits down the cable to the phone and reboot the phone, and then you're in Ubuntu land. The other way is you can get updates delivered over Wi-Fi in the same way as you get updates delivered on desktop operating systems and on Android and on iOS. It's just a short term for over-the-air update, and each one is numbered. The most recent one that came out a week or so ago was OTA 13, and we have a milestone in Launchpad which corresponds with each OTA, so you can see which bugs are targeted for an OTA in the milestone and kind of gauge what might be fixed in that release. Sometimes they get pushed back, but yeah. That's
and you can see your OTA version now on the system settings screen. So every Ubuntu device should be on the same OTA version, even if it's a different build number. They should all be on the same version if they're up to date.
Yeah, I'm just checking mine to see what mine says on.
Right. Chloe's asking if we have any plans for the weekend.
Yes, I'm going to walk my brother's dogs because my brother is away on holiday and I'm in his house, and I'm going to walk his dogs at the weekend because I enjoy walking his dogs, because he has a greyhound, and when I throw the ball he goes and runs at ridiculous speed, and it's good fun.
Yeah, I've got a hound, and she'll do that too, although she doesn't chase balls too much. She'll chase lizards.
I have to keep buying more tennis balls because and Larry, who is one of the dogs, will just pick up a ball and then run off into the woods and then drop the ball, and then I've got to, either go and try and find it or just say forget it and get another one out. So
yeah, we found where to buy a pack of like 12 tennis balls at a time from Amazon.
Yeah, I should do that. I get through at least one or two every time I walk their dogs. So yeah, I've bought a supply.
All right. The next question is for you from Chloe. She's asking, were you at EGX or did you want to go?
I don't know what EGX is, so no, and I didn't know it, so I didn't go.
I'm sure he wants to go.
Yeah, probably. Hot Potato asks, what is Google's Andromeda?
I have no clue.
I think I saw a rumor that it's the rumored merging of the Android and Chrome OS code bases, but that's all I know.
Yeah, ask Google that one. Chloe's asking. Go ahead.
Nope, go on. Nope.
She's asking if there are any updates for Mycroft on Ubuntu. So I'm assuming you mean like the Unity integration that they were working on. I haven't heard any updates. Their community manager, Ryan Sipes, has recently moved on to System 76, so I haven't heard too many updates. Or no, he was the CTO. He wasn't the community manager there. But either way, he's at System 76 now, so we need to maybe talk to their new guy and see if he'll come on one of these Q&As with us and talk about that.
Yeah, they've just put out an announcement. I saw that someone posted it to me just now. They've put out some kind of announcement or press release, but I don't know what it says because it came up just before we came on this call. So probably if you go to mycroft.ai, you might see some updated news, but I don't know if it's anything to do with Ubuntu or what. Chloe asks, what features do you expect to come from the next OTA? Honestly, I have no idea. I haven't looked at the milestone for 14. Excuse me, for 14.
No, neither have I. I used to run the RC proposed channel, so I would just get all the features before the next OTA, and I would know what's coming. But I've been on stable for a while now, so I'm not actually sure. I'm as surprised as everybody else now when the next OTA comes out, what new things are on there.
Yeah, I'm running RC proposed on my Meizu, but because because I get the incremental updates every day, it's running RC proposed is like running the development desktop release of Ubuntu all the way through the development cycle. You get all the little updates all the way through the 6 months between one release and the next, and then on release day you're like, well, there's nothing new here for me because I got it all like a month or 3 months ago. And that's exactly the same with the RC proposed. between one OTA and the next, I get everything over. I might see something new in it, like there, you just reminded me of something. I had to turn it on because it's off.
Right.
The login screen has changed, for example, and that's changed fairly early between 13 and 14. So by the time 14 comes out, I will have completely forgotten that has changed. Here we go. So, oh my God, I'm getting loads of messages.
Oh, you got messages.
Right. So, there it is. And if I just swipe across, you can't really see too clearly, but this has changed ever so slightly. I changed my name from Phablet to a little emoji pizza because I quite like pizza and because I can.
You just wanted to see if emoji would break something.
Yeah, I also insert emoji everywhere to try and break it. But yeah, it's quite good. And also you can see how fast the fingerprint reader is. If I just go like that. Try again, it says. Am I using the right finger? It worked that time. But yeah, it's quite good.
All right, so we have a whole bunch of questions still to get through and not a lot of time. So
go for it.
Run through the rest of these as fast as we can. Dragonbite, are there a lot of desktop applications that have not been updated for the mobile device, or a list of applications that have not been updated to work in both environments? Most desktop apps have not had any work to work on a small touch screen. Most of them will probably work with the legacy app support that's being built into Unity 8 and the Ubuntu phones. But as far as user interface, I don't know of many that have actually had any work done to them. Next question's easy. Hot potato. How do you review snaps? You don't. There's a script that will check and make sure that they are set to use the right kind of trusted confinement. And as long as they do that, then they pass the automated reviews and can be published. There does not need to be a human looking at these at all anymore, which is a wonderful improvement.
That said, there are exceptions, and there are some that break the rules. And if you submit an app that breaks the rules, you can submit it for manual review, and the security team may or may not look at it, but there's no guarantee on that.
Right, but that, like you said, that's the exception. If you can get it to where you're not breaking out of that confinement space, then you just go right through and can publish.
I uploaded a snap a couple of days ago. It's actually my first snap I've got in the store. I uploaded yesterday or the day before, and I was quite surprised that as soon as I'd pressed the publish button, I went to my laptop and did snap install, and it just was there straight away. So yeah, that's quite nice.
It's just like the Click Store was for the phone, so that's been a great experience.
Yep.
All right, Jarlath is asking, what's your favorite unofficially supported device for Ubuntu Touch? So, Alan, you're the only one of us with unsupported devices for Ubuntu Touch.
I would say the OnePlus One. Because the OnePlus One is a great phone. It's a really, really awesome phone. And it works pretty well. I currently have Android on it because my daughter is borrowing it. But when she gives it to me back, I'll reflash Ubuntu on it and then see what the current status is. All right.
So Seb was asking something about selling mobile phones from the 80s.
He says, how much do you think the UK, an older mobile phone from the 80s, would sell? Well, interestingly, I bought my mum a Nokia 3210 a couple of months ago, and I think it cost me £15, something like that, so $20 or something like that. I bought a Nokia 3210, and it was pristine, as new, for 20 quid.
But was that from the 80s?
No, I bought it today. I didn't buy it from the 80s. Yes, it
no,
is
but was it made in the 80s?
Old
was
phone.
It? Okay.
Yeah, on eBay. It's a well-renowned, like, there are joke memes online that show it, taking a bullet for the owner and stuff. It's
but those were out in the 90s. Those weren't in the 80s, were they?
Yeah, I don't know why he says 80s. My first phone I had in 1993, I think.
Yeah, I think the only mobile phones in the 80s were like suitcase sized.
This big, yeah. Okay.
All right. Dragos asks, can I use a Raspberry Pi as a router with Ubuntu Mate and using 2 network adapters? Probably. I'm going to say
I would
probably.
imagine so. I mean, it's Linux, so why would you not be able to do that?
Yeah,
I mean, it's
as
got
long as you
USB
know how to
ports.
set up your IP tables and everything to do the routing.
Yeah.
All right, Jarlath asks, in one of the Christian Bale Batman movies, Lucius connected audio input devices in all phones to create a sonar image of Gotham City. What's the ETA on this feature for Ubuntu phone?
Well, that depends how quickly you work on it, Jarlath. Really? Come on, step up.
Yes.
Get
So
on it.
we've actually had a bit of a problem finding Lucius to work on this for us. So if you happen to know him or Bruce Wayne, please put us in touch. All right, next question from Dragonbite. Are snaps available for other distributions? I know Docker is available on other distributions as well, Ubuntu, but is snaps as widespread? So the short answer is yes. Snaps are available on Arch and Debian and Fedora, and of course any Ubuntu derivative. The long answer is on non-Ubuntu distros, it takes a bit of extra work to get it set up. It's not automatically there. You can go to snapcraft.io to find out more about how to get that set up on whatever distro it is you want to run it on. Right. Dragos is asking, who remembers Ubuntu TV? I remember Ubuntu TV. So actually plugging my Nexus 4 phone into my TV brings back all those memories, and I really wish it had worked out because I think scopes would change the way smart TVs work.
I remember going to a barbecue at John O'Bacon's house years and years ago before Ubuntu TV was even a glimmer in anyone's eye. And this was in where Jono lives in California. And I walked in the door and he had his ThinkPad plugged into his giant TV in the lounge, and he had Rhythm Box showing on the screen, and he was just playing music, and that was the jukebox for the party, the barbecue. And yeah, someone pointed out, is that what Ubuntu TV is going to be like? And I'm glad that isn't what Ubuntu TV didn't end up being.
All right. Dragonbite asks, are snaps and Docker containers compatible or easily ported to each other? Yes, there are ways you can use snaps and Docker together. Trying to think of where we would have documentation on that. I think we've got some on snapcraft.io, but I'm not entirely sure on that. You can join #snappy here on Freenode and ask people about that.
Right, we've only got a few minutes left. Time to cherry pick some questions.
We're going to skip anything tree related. Sorry, guys. All right, Dragonbite asks, if I'm running 16.04 and try to install Unity 8 and it fails, where should I go for troubleshooting and for feedback? You can go to #ubuntu-unity, and you can ping some people in there and they can help you.
Dragonbite asks, is Unity 8 planned for 17.04, or is there a definitive version that will use it? So 16.10 will have it as an option, but it's something that's currently under active development, so it's not something that we've definitively said this release will be Unity 8 by default. It's currently an option on 16.10.
All right, I'm going to skip down to one from Dragonbite. He's asking, is Microsoft showing any interest in snaps? I have heard they are poking into Docker containers, but wonder about snaps. I have heard that there's some interest in getting snaps working on the Ubuntu on Windows environment, and there's some work going into that. It requires a little bit of extra work because they stripped out systemd from Ubuntu on Windows, and snaps currently were requiring that. So there is ongoing work, and hopefully soon you'll be able to install snaps in that environment also.
And also the other side, I believe there have been conversations with people from Microsoft to say, hey, we would be really interested in having some of your open source applications available on snaps. So for example, things like Visual Studio Code and Touch Develop and some of the other stuff that Microsoft have open sourced. We could snap that and make it easier for people to get hold of as well.
All right, Niexus is asking, how is the code-based convergence between the phone and desktop? It's coming along really well. If you want to try Unity 8 on the desktop, you'll be able to see the exact same code that runs on our phones and tablets running right there on your desktop. Feature-wise, it's getting closer and closer to Unity 7 every day. It's already usable as a desktop environment. Getting all of the apps that you depend on, either through the new packaging system or the legacy app support, is a little bit harder. That's all being worked on right now. I think that's the last big obstacle to making that really usable as a daily driver on your desktop. But the same code already working on both, and you can see it converge live.
There's a question in the middle here that isn't prefixed that I want to pick out from, I think it's Ari __. How skilled would you say one has to be in order to actually be able to contribute to the development of core apps in a useful way? Well, I've been able to contribute to them, and I'm not a developer, so you could use that as a measure. Most of the apps are written in QML, and it's actually surprisingly easy to hack on QML, especially when you've got the SDK open and you open one of the core apps, and you can just run it there and then on the desktop, fiddle with a bit of QML, run it again. You don't have that long iterative process of building it and deploying it to the phone. You can do that if you want to. If you want to see what it looks like on the device, the SDK supports that. But it's actually very quick and easy to test out changes that you make directly on the desktop. And QML is pretty readable, and there's a ton of documentation about QML and all of those things there. And we have a bunch of users who sit in a Telegram channel and support each other with app development as well. So I don't think it's that hard to get involved.
Just to illustrate it, none of the core apps developers were familiar with QML when we first started them. So they were all having to learn a brand new language. Some of them hadn't even been app developers previously. And they were able to get up and started pretty easily and start building these apps. So it is some of the easiest open source project you can get involved in right now. Cool. All right, I'm going to pick the next one. It is from Nick001. He says, UBports seems pretty busy, and Mario Grip seems to be really overloaded with work. Is there any way we as a community can help him? So Mario Grip is running ubports.com. He's got about a dozen different devices that he's porting Ubuntu over to. If you want to help him, there are two great ways you can do that. The first one, obviously, is to start working on ports yourself or helping him with the ports that he's got going on. Additional person support, hours, time is the best way to contribute to anything like that. If you don't have the time or the skills needed to do that, you can still support him financially. He's not being paid right now to do this other than through donations from people who like what he's doing and are using his ports on their devices. So he's got a Patreon account where you can go and you can chip in a little bit. He's also got a way where you can fund development of specific devices. So you can vote with your wallet on what devices you want him to support. And that's all on his page, ubports.com.
Awesome. I think that's a good question to finish off on. Thank you, everyone, for all your questions. Sorry we didn't get to all of them. You can save them up and bring them next week when I think Daniel and David may be doing the Q&A. It'll be Tuesday at 1500 UTC, as always. If you subscribe to the Ubuntu On Air channel or follow Ubuntu On Air on Twitter or Google+, you should see the announcement ahead of time. Or just lurk in the IRC channel and wait until it gets really busy. That's usually a good sign there's a video on right now.
Yeah. And if you don't want to wait until then, you can ask your questions anytime on any of our other Ubuntu IRC channels or mailing lists or social media accounts.
Awesome. Thanks,
right.
Mike.
See you all next week. Same bat time, same bat channel. I'm dating myself there, aren't I?
Yes. Cheerio, everyone.
Bye, guys.